Does anybody know what this is? It's an amp. This is a guitar amp. This is a 1964 Gibson Scout. I own it. I bought it. Not all of it worked. Now, all of it works. It's not really that collectible of an amp. It's not really valuable to those people because the original design for these amps is horrible. They just sound bad. They're not designed to give a good guitar feel and sound. However, they are a good platform for me because with this amp, there's all kinds of good working parts. They just need a little tweaking to get them to the point where they sound good. Now, this amp sounds far better than it did when I got it. Far better. It's still not perfect yet, okay? These two knobs did nothing. It did nothing. Nothing whatsoever. They work now. One makes it go whoa, 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 and the other makes it go wah. So, whoa, whoa, and wah. They work now. And it's loud. It's a lot louder than it used to be. And I like loud. Pretty cool little project. I love working on guitar stuff. I like playing guitar. That is fun. I do enjoy it. But I really, really enjoy working on stuff. So I like to take things apart. I have taken this entire amplifier apart. And I have looked inside, looked at all the electronic components. I can tell you probably for the most part what this circuit looks like. I can take it apart and I can pretty much put it back together. I can omit the parts that I know don't sound good, and I can make it sound a little better. Now, I started doing this kind of stuff with the help of Jessica. She bought me a kind of like a little mod kit for a pedal, and it kind of launched this whole fascination with little guitar electronics. But the cool thing is that I have learned about dabbling in electronics is that I really learn a lot by doing. If you were to look at me 10 years ago and say, what does this mean on, like, let's say a schematic of an amplifier? That's where you look at the circuit where it's laid out. I would have told you I know nothing. But now I can look at that and I can be like, well, it's probably going to sound like this. And the reason I can tell you that is because I've read so many of them and gotten familiar with them to the point that I can say, this amplifier probably sounds about like this. I can improve a circuit by looking at certain things and certain components. I can choose better quality parts that will work better. My soldering skills are really good now. If you were to look back at something that I had done earlier, it was atrocious. It was really bad. For those of you who don't know what that is, you get a hot little iron. There's basically, it's lead more or less, and tin, and you're going to combine these two components to a point where they meet, and it's really kind of an art. You get good at it. So I have a soldering iron. Her name is Gertrude. She's really faithful. She's really good at what she does. I know a lot of what I know about guitar stuff and circuits from doing, okay? I love, like last night, I am feeding Luke. We're getting him ready for bed, and I get a few minutes to just kind of watch something. So I have, on my phone, I'm sitting there, I've got a bottle, and I'm holding him, and I've got my phone kind of propped up like this, and I'm watching another, this is an amp tech. This is a guy who makes big money doing this kind of stuff. I'm not that guy. I'm just a guy who likes to tinker, but this guy makes a living doing this. And he makes these YouTube videos, and they're really cool to me, but they are probably the most boring thing on earth to you because it's just a guy, and he's looking at all this stuff, taking it apart piece by piece. But I love it. I can gain knowledge. I can learn some stuff from watching other people. But it's really, really different when I do something. It's really, really different when I get something apart and I look at it. And although the guy in the video made it look so easy that this wire just disconnects from this point, it's a lot harder in practice. It's a lot harder for me to do. Doing helps us to learn. We learn so much in life by doing. See, I have a goal in mind. My goal, Jessica doesn't know this, y'all. This is gonna be mind-blowing for my wife. My goal is to eventually build my own tube amplifier. I'm gonna build it. I'm gonna do the whole thing. Every little bit of it is gonna be my handiwork. That's the end goal. I'm gonna get there, and it's gonna sound fantastic. No, it probably won't. The first run never sounds good. But that's my end goal. That's what I have in sight. And I'm gonna get there by doing, okay? As I continue to do, I will get to the point where I have learned so much that I can build my own creation from my hands, right? Isn't that cool? Basically, it's just gathering parts. It's Legos, really. That's all this is. Our text for today is going to focus on doing. That's it. Very simple. The text today focuses on doing. Jeff, I think we've got it back there. We can go to James chapter 1, verses 19 through 25. My beloved brothers and sisters, let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For human anger does not produce God's righteousness. Therefore, rid yourselves of all sordidness and rank growth of wickedness, and welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror. For they look at themselves, and on going away immediately forget what they were like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. But be doers of the word, and doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. All disciples of Christ are learners. The origin of the word disciple comes from the Greek word mathetes, which comes from the Greek word manthano, which simply means to learn. And as a noun, it's perfectly translatable as learner. Each of us who follow Christ are learners. We're learning along the way. But James points at a particular type of learning, and that is learning by doing. You see, learning is the product of experience. We learn as we attempt to solve a problem. We learn as we engage in activity. We learn as we do. Doing is essential to learning, just as doing is essential to discipleship. My first year in seminary, I was assigned as a hospital chaplain to the Wesley Woods Geriatric Hospital. The first floor was actually my floor. And it's kind of cool because at Emory, the curriculum is particularly geared your first year around practical experience in ministry. So for a whole year, I functioned as this chaplain for this floor. And here's the funny thing they do. They put you on the floor and they say, go. There are no instructions. There is nothing whatsoever. You have no idea what you're doing. Chances are you actually get there before you've been in the classroom to kind of have any type of conversation about it. You just hit the ground running. What does a chaplain do? I had no idea. I had no clue, really. So what did I do? I just did. I walked around. I brought my guitar. I had no clue. But as I was on the floor, I would learn as I would do. I would come in and nurses would tell me, you need to visit X, Y, and Z. Well, guess what? I went to go visit X, Y, and Z. I learned through that year by doing. All the theory, all the study that you do in the classroom, that's good. But it doesn't mean a hill of beans until you hit the ground. And when you hit the ground running, which Emery was more than happy to oblige, you learn a lot about yourself and what you're learning in the classroom. There are other instances in life where I am sure you have learned by doing. Marriage is one of those where you learn by doing. There was a time in my life where I wasn't married, and there was no manual. There's no instructions. There's nothing. You just get married and go forth. That's it. That's it. But you learn a lot in marriage by doing. Well, first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes a baby carriage. I know nothing about kids, nothing. But I do have a 4-year-old, and I do have, however old you are, Luke, I forget. But I've learned a lot about parenting by doing. It's not that I had a manual, it's not that I had a whole lot of instruction, but I do have a whole lot of gut. And I just do. There are times when you will question yourself in life. You'll look at you and be like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing. Those moments are real. They happen. People get stuck in all kinds of situations in life, and you just do. You just do. So, as a church, as disciples of Christ, our task is learning to follow Christ. And the best means of doing so, just like any good thing, is by doing. When we do, we learn. Now, James specifically points out being a doer of the word. Well, the word could be all kinds of things, right? And I only have a very small time frame to kind of narrow it down as to what the word could be. And I'm going to tell you this. If I were to sum up the entirety of the gospel message and try to simplify everything from the Old and New Testaments as best as I could, this is what I'm just going to come up with. And I'm just going to boil it down, and this is what's here. Do good. Doing good is good. Doing good can be all kinds of things. Doing good may be mowing your lawn. I am doing good. It may be taking a shower. Doing good may be all kinds of things, but doing good helps to carry out the divine mission. When we do good in our community, we are doing good for a whole. We're doing good for more than ourselves. When you shower, you're doing more than good for just yourself, but those around you. That's a joke. You can laugh. Okay. If we boil it down, we're just going to say, do good. Do good. And by doing good, you'll be a doer of the word. All you got to do is do good. Just going to simplify it down to there. But what good are you doing? That's interesting, right? Well, let me ask you this. What are you good at doing? What's something that you can just do without thinking about it? I know some of you can knit or crochet because I have some blankets that were made by you. I know that your sewing skills may be something that you don't even think about, but it's super cool for me because my child has, what do you call that? Well, we're just going to say they're customized burp cloths. Yeah, Luke's rocking in style, y'all. Wiping that burp off with something, he's got a monogram on it. It looks awesome. Maybe you're a great cook. Maybe you need to bless somebody with a fantastic meal. Maybe you love to work on guitar amps and you need to bless your brother so that he sounds his best. We learn how to be a disciple of Christ by doing good, plain and simple. And we learn how to do good by doing good. And that good can take all kinds of shapes. It could be reading scripture, exercising, engaging in a new hobby. It could just be doing housework. It can be just anything. Sometimes those good things will be good and bless others with the gospel message. You have no idea sometimes how you can connect to people. How many of you saw in the future of Gordon Lake's ministry that we would connect with men in a muzzleloader shoot? All because some guy likes to do good. Didn't see it coming, but guess what? We do it on a regular basis and praise God for it. Now, this is just going to be something here, something a little different. I want you to think about something that you have dreamed about doing. You just keep it to yourself. But something you'd be like, I have always dreamed of doing X, Y, or Z. Whatever it might be. All right. So my goal, mine, is we're going to build a guitar amp one day. We're going to build an amp one day. We're not quite there yet. All right. That's mine. And here's what I'm going to tell you. And you're going to be like, oh, this is harsh. No, it's not harsh. We're setting you on the right path here. I want you to stop dreaming today. I want you to stop dreaming about what you want to do. And I want you to take this. And that is the first step in doing it. We can dream all day long, and we can have a cool idea of what something would be, but if we never, ever act on it, then it's just a dream. I'm going to ask you to stop dreaming today about that thing you've always wanted to do, and I want you to start doing. And the way that we do this is just take a step in that direction. That's it. Just a step, because you can take as many steps as you need to get to where you need to go, to do what you want to do. You can do that. And taking a step in that direction gets you closer to realizing that dream than you ever were before. People will ask me, do you think I could play guitar? Sure. But have you taken the first step? The first step usually for guitar is just you have to have one. That's it. Sometimes taking the first step is just such a relief. You see, dreaming requires no movement, no actualization. But if we take steps, we get closer to making that dream a reality. And you can always take another step towards your goal. It may not get you right there in the moment, but it gets you far closer than you ever were before. And let me tell you something about taking steps. How many of you have a project, something just at home that you're like, man, I got to get to this. It's just something on the back burner. You're like, yeah, you got it. You got it, right? Yeah, absolutely. You got things you want to do, right? Let me tell you. Do you know, if you're like me, the best feeling on earth is when you take the first step in doing that. When I look at something and I'm starting to actualize it, I'm starting to make it happen, that first step to me, oh, that is therapy, buddy. That makes me feel good. Because my favorite part about it is I took control of the circumstances. No longer is it just something we're like, well, when I get around to it. Oh, no. I took the first step. That means we are closer than we were, and we're starting to actualize hitting this goal. Oh, I love it. Let me ask you this. What's something that you have felt a passion and drive to do, but have yet to start? What have you always wanted to start doing? Well, let me tell you this. As you start doing, as you take a step, the doing gets easier. It may be that Gordon Lake needs to start serving a need that you have identified here within our community, and you're enthusiastic about it, and you need that enthusiasm and drive to point you in the right direction in taking the step to making it actualize, to making it happen. Oh yeah, that's a call to ministry, baby, right there. That's absolutely all day long. And doing is always a learning experience. You set up the first step to do something. Well, guess what? You're usually going to go to step 2, right? And step 2 doesn't have to be anything specific, but just as long as it's a step getting you closer. But as we do, we learn. Don't believe me? Okay, that's fine. But I want you to think back into your life where you had the thought, oh, yeah, I won't do that again. You've been there, right? You've had the moments where you're like, yes, one and done. We're never doing that again. That is not happening. Well, you learned something there. You learned your limits. You learned something about doing, and you can say, man, I am not going that way again, not doing that. Let me tell you one of the most frustrating things in working on guitar stuff. It needs to make sound. That's it. If I turn it on and it doesn't make sound, oh, buddy, that is just all kinds of fun. And here's the way my personality works. Jessica loves this. She can't stand this. If it doesn't work that first go-round, which 90% of the time, when you turn it on for the first time, it doesn't work right, okay? Or it may not sound at all. I'm going to research. I'm going to figure it out. And probably for the next week to 2 weeks until I get it figured out and nailed down and it works, that's probably all I'm thinking about, no matter what it is. We learn when we make mistakes. We learn when we have those moments when we say, I am not doing that again. Life just happens, and sometimes we make a mess of it. And that is part of doing. Those moments that you have, you're like, oh, we won't be doing that again. Well, they are key because we learn from those moments. We remember those things, and we just will not do them again. We learn by doing. And when we make mistakes, we learn from them, and we become better doers. Sometimes doing, being a doer of the word, is just a matter of getting started. It's just a matter of overcoming the anxiety and just starting, just doing. James tells us, doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. When we look to live out our faith in real and tangible ways, God offers encouragement and blessing in what we do. Sometimes anxiety will hold you back from doing something you should have done a long time ago. The dread and fear of what could be more than likely won't even happen. We went to watch Inside Out 2 this past Friday, and anxiety is a major character in the film. Anxiety takes over the emotional control board of the main character whose name I have forgotten. But when she does so, anxiety plans ahead in all these various scenarios that are just absolutely unlikely to ever occur. Just has all these things plotted out and creates all this stress that's undue and unwanted. We do that. I remember as the branch manager here at the local bank, we would have a town hall meeting, and I would have every person in the branch be like, oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to do it. It's going to be so bad. They're going to make me talk. Like we did this 4 times a year. I know exactly what's going to happen. So we would have the meeting, and eventually the meeting would be over and be done. Well, that wasn't that bad. Yes, it wasn't that bad. It's all the anxiety and dread that you have. Don't hold on to that. Let God have that. Let God deal with all that. God has already dealt with it anyway. And let God bless you in your doing. If you've got something where you're like, man, this is my calling, acknowledge it and start doing. Absolutely start doing. Let me tell you another thing about doing. Not only is it blessed, and this one just comes down to just being a human. Doing takes time. In the comedy series Hacks, the aging comedian Deborah Vance speaks to a particular time in her life. And she's talking to her young comedic writer. And her writer is much, much younger than her, but helps her come up with all of her comedy material. And they're kind of a duo, but they're the odd couple, right? Deborah's getting close to almost 80, and her writer's barely approaching 30. But Deborah Vance has this to say. And she says this, you know, your whole life, you say, one day, one day I'll do this. One day I'll accomplish that. And the magic of one day is that it's all ahead of you. Now remember, she's talking to someone who's barely 30. And she's a little bit older. She says, but for me, one day is now. Anything I want to do, I have to do now, or else I'll never do it. That is the worst part of getting older. Time is precious, and doing takes time. And as we age, the time that we have to do it shrinks. As we age, that window just gets smaller and smaller. So we just had Luke 4 months ago? I'm guessing. Can't really remember. Time flies. But I used to have in the evenings just a little like window of like time that I could do whatever I wanted to do. So I could do this kind of stuff. And I would go into my little guitar room and I'd fire up the soldering iron and start tinkering away. But 2 kids is far different than having 1. That time that I had is gone. I do not have it at all. I look back and I'm like, Phillip, what were you doing with all this time? I look back to the time before Jessica and I had kids, and I'm like, we were just boring. I don't know what we did. We had no lives whatsoever. But if there's something that you have always wanted to do, I want you to think about Deborah Vance's message there. Anything I want to do, I have to do now, or else I'll never do it. That's the worst part of getting older. When we're watching the series, and I was like, man, that is deep. That is deep. That speaks to you on so many levels. Maybe some of you aren't doing it all. Maybe you're believing and simply not doing. Now, James has no kind words for those who simply just don't do. James says, you believe that God is one? Well, you do well. Even demons believe. Think about that. Even the demons believe that God is one, right? James' point is that even demons believe, but their actions, what follows? That's his emphasis. It may be in life that you have fear, dread, and anxiety about starting doing. You may be hesitating, saying, oh, I would love to start this, but I just don't know how. Or I'm afraid it won't be right. It won't be perfect if I do it. I'm going to tell you again, give God that anxiety and start learning by doing. Stop dreaming and start doing and taking steps towards doing. Starting is great. I love it. Because that's the thing. When I take that first step, you feel so empowered because you're realizing something. You're putting something into action. Gordon Lake is engaging in new mission ministries. We are engaging and helping other congregations, and we have all kinds of ministries going on. We are a doing people. But I want you to know that as we are doing these things, we are learning. That means we will have moments where we say, not doing that again. Oh, those happen. But as we're learning and doing, we are becoming better. And as we reflect on what we have done, we will only continue to get better. God will bless us in our doing. New avenues of ministry may look odd, they may be atypical, but we are always learning as we do. And you know what? We'll get better. We'll get better every time. Absolutely. We'll get better as we strive and do together. There may be moments where we look back and ask, what were we thinking? But we've gained important knowledge from that experience, and we will get better at doing things well. This is my amp. It did not work 100% when I got it. But I've learned so much by doing things with this amp. I've learned by doing. And when we do, we learn. If you've got a dream, and I asked you about it, I know you thought about it, I want you to stop dreaming. And I want you to start doing by taking whatever the first step might be looking like it. I want you to also realize that as you're doing, that time is very, very precious. Danny, if you want to come. And I want you to also know that while you are doing, you are also learning. But be doers of the word and not merely hearers. And doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. I want to encourage you, whatever it might be, something that you just have always felt a passion and desire and drive to do, I want you to start moving in that direction. And if you've got any anxiety, any doubt about what that might be or how to go about doing it, I want you to lay that aside. I want you to put that down. I want you to give that to God. And I want you to start doing. And I just want you to take the very first step in whatever that might look like. Whatever that might be. We all have something we want to do. Some drive, some ambition. I'm going to tell you, point yourself in that direction. The first step may be the most simple thing ever. It may just be buying a guitar because you've always wanted to learn to play. And when you take that first step, you feel good because you realize you've got a little bit of control. And it's not a dream that's just out there. It's nice to have. But it's something you're actually going to do. And while you're doing that thing, whatever it might be, God promises that God will bless you in your doing. Because you'll be a doer of the word. Because whatever that thing is, I know it's good. I know it's good and perfect and true. Because God wouldn't have put it in your heart with that implanted word. Whatever that good might be, that good that you can start, I want you to start. I want you to give God glory and say, whatever's holding me back, Lord, I'm done with that. That's at the foot of the cross. And I'm going to be a doer. I'm going to be someone who does. And God will reward you in your doing.